are the 9-1 Warriors, the best team in the NBA.
June, we'll start with you on this one, just for the sake of mixing it up.
I think this is the deepest Warriors team that we've seen since that first Warriors run. I mean, you have Damian Lee, who's been playing awesome in absence of Klay Thompson. You've got Gary Payton Jr., who G League Defensive Player of the Year in the past, and he's been an incredible defensive addition. Draymond Green has been awesome this season. I think he's kind of looked like that vintage Draymond that we has kind of come and go the last couple of years. He's been a facilitator. He's been obviously the glue of that team. And then you also have just Steph Curry, exploding. And it's one of those things where I think the Warriors, as good as they are offensively and as good as they have been this year, their defensive ability this year has been the reason why they've been so good so far. And they've had an easy schedule so far, which is obviously something to take into consideration. But I'm curious to see if this Warriors team is going to make moves, because I think, Andrew Wiggins might be a gateway into trading for someone. It might be time to kind of check in on Bradley Beal again to see if that's a fit in terms of a trade discussion. I think there's a lot.
Check in. Hey, Brad, how you doing, buddy? Everything good? All right, we'll check back in later when you're losing.
That's funny.
I think there's a lot of room for growth with this Warriors team. I think they, especially once Klay Thompson comes back, like there's a very, very high ceiling for this Warriors team this year.
Izzy?
I feel like I need to start off by saying that I am like a Warriors person. Like, I was a Warriors fan. Like, this is the team that got me to love basketball, Run TMC, back in the early 90s, okay? So, and every iteration of the Warriors since
Hold on. Stop the show.
I need to get this out.
Okay, you're going all the way back to Run TMC, just to be clear?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
Just to be clear.
All right.
And then, Latrell Sprewell and Chris Webber days, and then the Baron Davis, and then we go to this version of Steph, and again, I was kind of on it during the Mark Jackson, early Steph Curry days. And I love this team. Absolutely love this team. Steve Kerr is one of my favorite humans, not even a coach, okay? They're not the best team in the NBA, man. I love what they do. I love, obviously Steph and Draymond. But, a lot of the other pieces, like Gary Payton II and Damian Lee, they remind me kind of like the Jordan Bells of the earlier Warriors days, where it's just like, all right, regular season early on, they're going to be pretty good. It's going to be a nice addition. But we're talking about comparing them to the 73-9 Warriors. We're talking about, throwing in a KD and those for the next 3 years. This team, even when it does get Klay back, which won't be the same Klay, at least not this year, is going to have some issues. It's going to have some size issues. They're going to have probably some offensive issues if Draymond Green's shooting goes back to where it was in the past. I don't believe, you look at that schedule, they've beaten two teams with winning records right now, and that's the Lakers and the Clippers, and those were their first two games, and those teams were obviously still trying to figure out because of whether additions or injuries to the Clippers. And yeah, I just would like to see a lot more play out. I don't think that they have the same caliber of Sean Livingston off the bench. They don't have that reliable type of guy. They have Andre Iguodala, but it's not the Andre Iguodala from 5 years ago. I think they're going to have to make a move. I think they're a top 4 seed in the West. But best team in the NBA, you got to really look at that schedule and say they have gotten it pretty easy.
I think the problem with Warriors comparisons, while we're still in the watershed of the Steph Curry takeover, is that exactly what you said, Izzy. We're constantly comparing Warriors teams to what is arguably the best team that ever played in the NBA. And I think that that's not fair to the current climate of the NBA in terms of what this team is doing. Now, obviously, they're not getting back to what they once were in terms of that level of, I say this all the time. You're never going to see that again in basketball in your life if you were alive when it happened. It's just not happening. It was a completely different way that the game played out, and they actually managed to make it to the top. Even if they didn't win every single thing, I still think that team that didn't win the title was the best basketball team I've ever seen. But my point is that if this team continues to play this way, they've still got guys that know how to do it. And I don't necessarily think it's going to extrapolate out into them banging everybody through the West. But right now, I'm not sure that there is a more beatable team. They're a less beatable team than them. They put it all together. I don't see any reason to take it against them that they've beat so-called bad teams. They've won all the daggone games. That's what good teams do. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's for me, the talent level might not be as high as people think, but right now they're playing the best basketball. That's for sure.
the net rating, like, we need to slow down with that because, again, like, look at the games that they've played. Like, it's not. And then, you know, obviously he blew up on Atlanta, Steph did, and got 50, but Atlanta has not been good so far this year, which kind of ruins my Nate McMillan Coach of the Year prediction. But anyway, look, and I'm not saying they're not, like, potentially. Like, look, if Jordan Poole becomes essentially, like, Klay Thompson, you know, 2.0 or light, like, that's a pretty good addition, right? Like, that's somebody you could say is, like, maybe not defensively with the body, but you could just sort of replace, like, the Harrison Barnes, you know, roster spot with him. Damian Lee, like you mentioned, has just gotten better and better and is a good, like, explosive guy off the bench. I don't know if I trust their bigs necessarily. I don't know if I trust, you know, James Wiseman, especially when it comes down to just being, like, great defensive team, like, on a string. So, yeah, we'll see. Like, I think they're going to struggle some defensively. Like, they gave up, 113 and 114 to the Clippers and Lakers the first two games and barely, you know, beat those teams. And then, again, the easy part of the schedule came up. So I'd like to see it play out a little bit more. I just don't think they're the best team in the NBA.
You know who's not second
I think
Klay Thompson is Klay Thompson also because he's coming back. I mean, that's, you know, a major factor here for me. Sorry, Jude, go ahead.
Well, Izzy, I think you're onto something with Jordan Poole because I think he's the X factor of this team. How good his ceiling is for this season because he's been improving over the course of his entire NBA career, and you know he's averaged 14 points a game so far this year in the absence of Klay Thompson. I think that he's a guy that, you know, once Klay comes back, if he's able to keep up his production, like that makes the rest of that bench a lot deeper, and I think it puts a lot of less pressure on guys like Otto Porter and Andrew Wiggins and you know, a guy like Gary Payton Jr. to have to produce in order to be productive on this team. And so I think the ceiling of this team, I think we're going to get a much better sense of it when Klay actually comes back and how we see Jordan Poole adapt to having Klay Thompson back into that lineup.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.